stars, I will be there.
I'm Monica Charette, and this is Holding the Light.
As long as you love, I will whisper in your ear. Little whispers you will hear. As long as you love.
When your child dies, it's so hard to accept that every part of their existence going forward is no longer possible. Mary Alexandra felt this deeply after her daughter Celina died, as life inevitably moves forward. This kind of grief never goes away. But Mary shares how it is possible to balance grief with her greatest joys, like the wedding of her younger daughter and becoming a grandmother, all while keeping Celina's memory alive. A message for all who are grieving. It's okay to be sad and happy. Join us as Colby and I hold the light with Mary Alexandra. Hey Mary, it's so nice to see you, even virtually. Colby and I are honored that you are here with us today. So Mary and I have met in person. I think it was about 6 years ago when a very dear friend of mine asked if you'd be willing to talk with a family member who needed to connect with someone. And she said, using these words, she said, she needs to talk to somebody who gets her. And bereaved parents know exactly what that means. And isn't that just what this podcast is all about? So we invited Mary to share her experience with our listeners who might relate to her grief journey. Mary is a literacy and special education teacher, a wife, and the mother of two beautiful daughters, Celina and Sarah. Celina tragically died 8 years ago in a car accident. And I'm always curious when people casually ask a parent who has lost a child, so how many children do you have? How do you respond to that, Mary?
I always respond to, because I have two children. I don't elaborate unless then they ask, so, what are they doing? And then I say what happened. But I don't, I just always say I have two girls.
Yeah. Great. I always say, are you kidding me? It gives me an opportunity to talk about both of them, both Colby and Cassidy, and be able to say their names. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
So you're a Mainer and you raised your family here in Maine, but Celina was living in California, right? When the accident occurred.
Yes.
What brought her to the other side of the country?
Well, Celina was very much a free spirit. And she had gone to Orono for 1 year after high school, more for me than anything. And so she would joke and say she wanted to go to the University of Life. And that is what she did. And I have this one part from the eulogy I had given that sums up from a young age Celina's personality and why she wanted to venture off to California. So I remember the instance at Credo's studio. It's where we went to have our first communion confirmation picture taken. So Celina looked angelic with her beautiful veil and gown. Mr. Credo had her posed on a stool, and just as he was about to take her picture, Celina yelled, "Wait," and quickly spun around on the stool a couple of times. When she finally came to a stop, she looked at Mr. Credo and said, "Okay, I'm ready." That's her. That's just her. She just had to go around and then she could sit. So she wanted to see beyond Sanford, beyond Maine, and she wanted to just experience life, and she really did. And she also did have an aunt and uncle that lived out there, so she had a home base to start off. So that also made it much easier for her.
So she was just like less than a month short of graduating, correct, from the school that she was attending?
She was so proud. She was going to be graduating with a 4.0. She took classes at community college at Folsom Lake, was finishing up her degree, and was in there also doing a lot of tutoring, instructional assistant to an anatomy and physiology teacher. She was tutoring a lot of adults and one high school girl that she had taken on. And after we lost her, there were so many letters that came in from adults that she had tutored that said that they probably wouldn't have kept on. She was tutoring them in chemistry, and she just always cheered them on. And as a teacher, I recognize that natural high you get when your students do well.
Mm-hmm.
And she used to tell me she couldn't wait to see their exams after and just see how good they did. And even though they were adults, she would put little stickers on. She loved helping. She loved helping students and helping people feel successful. And there was one class that she took when she was still figuring things out. It was a wine tasting course. And there was one student in there that drove 2 hours to come to her memorial. And the student came with his interpreter because he was deaf. And he wanted us to know that during that class, he almost gave up because he was having such a hard time. And Celina just sat next to him and just helped him. And he ended up, passing the class. And that was just how she was, a beautiful person.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
I imagine a lot of her, her classmates in the larger community at that school reflected pretty heavily on her loss. I'm just curious, more of a technical question, but did the college decide to observe her degree posthumously?
Yes, we reached out and they did. So she had a degree, and they also, because she had helped work on a grant for the science center, um, and she would tutor, they actually named a corner of the science center Celina's Science Corner. And they made a sign and it's on. I don't know if you had a chance to go to our website for her scholarship, but it's one of the pictures on there, and you can see it was Celina's Science Corner, which really meant a lot to us, because it just
I can
showed
imagine.
that she was highly respected, and she just loved people. She loved people, and she wasn't one that needed to be above others to feel good. She felt good when she could help others feel raised up, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
She liked to help people and make people feel good, and she was very successful with that.
What do you think she would have done with her life, Mary?
I think she probably would have ended up either being a chemistry teacher at secondary, so high school or college, or the other thing, she had had quite a few injuries. Younger, she had torn both ACLs. She had shin splints, and so she had had physical therapy. And so she had also applied for a physical therapy assistant program. She didn't expect to get in because they only took like 300 out of however many could sign up. But after, it was probably a week after we lost her, we did get an email that she was accepted. So I had to let them know, to give her a spot. But knowing that, I'm not sure if she would have gone that route or would have gone the teaching route. But she loved teaching. She just loved helping, and I think probably she would have gone that route. And she also wanted to be a mother, and that she talked about a lot. She wanted to end up moving closer to home because she wanted to have her children near us.
Mm.
And so, she definitely wanted to have a family and a career.
Sounds like she was following in her mom's footsteps.
Yeah. Uh,
So I know it's hard to go put yourself back into the place when everything happened, but you got the call that parents are so fearful of. And
yeah,
yeah, can you tell us about that
it
moment?
was around 4:30 in the morning because we're in Maine. She was in California, and it was my brother-in-law. And I was so oblivious to the fact that when I handed my husband the phone, I told him, I said, geez, I hope nothing happened to his wife. And I could hear him saying what had happened. And for me, if you can feel pain in every cell of your body, it's a depth that can't be explained. Because I've lost people, but it's different. It's different when it's your child. And I remember I couldn't even cry at first because I was just pacing. While my husband was on the phone with the police because they've been trying to reach us. And of course, the first thing was, "Are you sure, that it's her?" But it was like like my sister says, watching me as the days went by, you could almost tell I was in shock. It was like you're just kind of doing what you have to do. And I remember my friend trying, bringing something over, and my sister was there, my sisters, and I was shaking. I couldn't. I could barely hold a toast. I was just shaking, and honestly, I didn't know how I was going to continue. Yeah, it's like, how do you go forward? When that happens. For me, having Sarah, my other daughter, she was my reason
Hmm.
for getting up.
Yeah. How'd you find the strength to support her?
Well, after I called her, I could barely speak to let her know. And she had a good friend that lived nearby, a good friend from grade school and high school that happened to be out not far from her. So I had called her friend and I told her, I said, can you just go be with her? Because I was trying to figure myself out and I didn't feel like I could give her what she needed because I was trying to figure out how to even navigate this. So her friend went over and I knew she had somebody that she was comfortable with that she could talk to. So that's how I initially helped her, was to make sure she had somebody there. And then after that, we flew out and she met us in California. The three of us were all very involved in the funeral arrangements and what are we going to do? Because, I wanted to make sure that she had a say in everything. So that's pretty much how I guess the three of us moved forward through the initial process.
Well, in the beginning, we all know it's like difficult to just get out of
Oh,
bed,
yeah.
right? Face the day.
Oh, absolutely.
But you
Absolutely.
definitely have clearly you've made the decision to walk beside your grief, to find a way to continue living your life, which I know is not easy. Do you remember at what point, and tell us for what reasons you chose to move forward? Do you remember that feeling?
The reason, yeah, well, I remember a couple of people at the funeral shocked that I was going to be going back to work. And for me, if I'm even now, if I have too much downtime, I feel myself just go in a dark place. And I have to talk to myself to, you know, get up, just move and take care of yourself. But really, it was Sarah. Obviously, I'd want to do it for my husband too, but it was Sarah's what really drove me to take care of myself because I remember telling her in a FaceTime, we have to find joy because she still had her whole life. And she was at the Naval Academy, she was in flight school, her dreams were all coming true. And I wanted to be there for her wedding, for her children, and because I wanted her to have a healthy mother. And so she's really why I moved forward.
Tell us about Sarah's wedding. How was that for you? I think about that a lot when Colby gets married.
That was hard because initially Celina would have been her maid of honor. I mean, that was just a given. As different as they were very close. And so it most likely would have been in our church where they were baptized, where, First Communion, the church we went when they were children. It was just going to be too much for everyone. And Sarah was so sweet. When she initially said, that she was going to be getting married, she said, we're thinking of doing a destination wedding. And she picked Italy because she knew I always wanted to go to Italy. So she was very much aware too. But I remember initially crying, not to her, just after I found out, just because I worry so much about her and her loss. And I know I'm sure you do for Colby too. I was sad that she wasn't going to have her there. But we were able, like my sister and my niece came, and Sarah and my niece are as close to sisters as you can get without being sisters. So she had her, which I was so glad there. And it was a beautiful wedding. And the night before, we were in this old inn. It was like 1100 AD. It was in Cortona in the mountains. And Sarah and Jake asked us up, my husband and I, and we opened a bottle of wine that Celina had bought for Sarah that she never got to give her for Sarah's accomplishments. It was called a triumphant. And so we opened that and we toasted and we cried. And so then the next day, then it was about Sarah's wedding. And there was a bouquet that no one was allowed to carry, and that was on a chair for Celina. That was her bouquet. And my niece walked with the other bouquet. And then Sarah had a good friend that had also joined us. So it was a very intimate wedding, but it was absolutely beautiful and really perfect, aside from Celina not being there.
Yeah.
But I think us acknowledging that night before and just crying kind of helped us get it out. And then we could focus because it's a happy, beautiful day. And I wanted that there for Sarah. I had initially gone to counseling a couple months before because I didn't know how do I handle such joy with such grief, because part of your heart is just so sad and the other part is so happy. And how do I let the happy part shine through? So counseling helped me with that a lot too.
Do you remember what they told you? I'd be so curious. Do you remember anything that they said that really helped you get through that moment?
She just helped me. I think I did so much talking and crying with her. It almost helped relieve what I hadn't been able to relieve before. The first few counseling sessions, I cried almost throughout the hour because just trying to talk, and she was so helpful in helping me figure out, for one thing, it's okay to be happy. And it's okay because I wrestled with that too. And life does go on. And she just helped me see that. And it was somebody that didn't know Celina, so I could talk to her, and really she helped me just really see that it's a terrible tragedy and it's okay to live.
And you found ways to make her feel present there.
Oh, yes. It was so interesting. The first few days when we were there, it was so windy. I mean, really windy. And I thought Sarah will never be able to wear her veil because she was getting married outside. And the day of her wedding, it couldn't have been more beautiful. There was no wind. And those signs, like there was no doubt Celina was there with us.
Yeah, Colby and I talk about ways we feel Cassidy's presence too, like in a sunrise and a sunset. And sometimes it's a song or a sign or circumstance that only he and I understand, and my husband. So you believe in spiritual presence. And have you ever had a moment when you felt like, yes, this is Celina?
Yes. Actually, we're in Italy. We went to Rome for a few days after. My husband and I were walking, and I saw Celina always signed her name with a heart, and always, love always, Celina. That's how she signed her name. Well, we're walking in Rome, and there's a big heart with two eyes and a smile, and then Elina. And I looked at my husband, I said, oh my goodness, I said, that's Celina, because her name is Celina. And I said, that's Celina. And I didn't have my camera to take a picture. Well, we went another day. We were there like 3 days. We're walking in totally another part of Rome, and there it is again. And I took a picture of it. So I do believe that she was with us. And there's been one time we were driving to Sarah's during COVID. They were in Pensacola, and I was just sad. Sometimes you're just sad, and I was just sad. And I turned the radios on, and the song that Sarah and Celina had chosen to get Albert and my husband, up doing karaoke with them came on the radio. And then this 18-wheeler went by, and on the back were the letters CMA, just like somebody took a white marker and wrote CMA for Celina Marie Alexandra. And I looked at him, I said, I wanted him to slow down, but we were on a highway because I wanted to get a picture. But it was so powerful because it wasn't part of it was just there. So I truly believe she watches over us. Sarah's bachelorette party, her friends gave her one, and they ended up in La Jolla. She was stationed in San Diego. She's in the Navy. They ended up in La Jolla. Spur of the moment, went to a piano bar, and after it was dueling pianos, and when Sarah and my niece were getting ready, waiting for an Uber, one of the pianists came out and he looked at her and he said, "Do you have a sister, Celina?" And she goes, "Yes." Well, now this is La Jolla, West Coast. He said, "I went to school with her at Orono for the year." And I remember Celina had gone on a couple dates with him. She loved the way he played the piano, and he had brought him to the house. And I remember crying when my niece told me, and I said, "That was Celina saying, 'Sarah, I'm here.'" So it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, thanks for sharing those. Those are beautiful moments. Child loss really changes the person you once were, as you know. The wife, the mother, the daughter, the friend. I've said to my friends many times, it really must suck to be my friend right now.
I know. Yeah.
How are you different than you once were?
I'm always just teetering when I could just go into a deep sadness. It's always um it's always there. There's always before I remember when the four of us would be together, and especially as they got older, I'd say, God could take me right now and I would die happy, because to me that was pure joy, being with my girls and my husband, and we're just so happy. And so it's that pure joy. I feel it when I'm around like Sarah and my granddaughter, but there's always that little piece of sadness that's still there. And that was something that obviously wasn't there before. She's just always not there. And even though I enjoy the holidays, I love going. Sarah and Jake, they're so wonderful. We always spend Christmas together, because our holidays totally changed after we went to Jake. He was living at Port Angeles. He's in the Coast Guard. In the year after, the holidays were just so difficult. We just went out there and we kind of did our own thing, to just try to survive it. Now they have a child, and slowly we brought back the Christmas tree. And slowly this year we went looking at lights, because I always took the girls to look at lights because Albert was second shift. And then on the weekends we'd all go. So bringing those things back, and that's what I want for Sarah. I want her not to worry about me. I want her to have a wonderful life with her family and to enjoy Christmas. And I love watching her and her husband and their daughter just enjoy and be happy.
It's a dance, though, isn't it? Because she's
It's a
trying
dance.
to protect you while you're trying to protect her.
Exactly. Exactly. But I think, you know, seeing her so happy and so successful brings me joy. That's what you want for your kids. You want them happy, successful, and she is. And I know she hurts, and that hurts me, but we've talked a few times, but I think when we're together we try to just enjoy each other
Yeah.
too, and just enjoy the moment.
Well, we never want anyone else to experience this life we didn't choose.
No.
But we often
No.
wish people and society, I guess, as a whole, just to be a bit more grief literate. What are some of the things you wish people who have not experienced child loss understood so they could better support grieving parents?
Well, and I've seen this so many times on some sayings. You won't remind me if you say her name, that I know she's gone. And I love talking about her. I love when her friends or somebody will post something, a memory. It just warms my heart. And I think so people need to understand that it doesn't hurt us anymore. I also think it's important for people to understand that sometimes we're just not up to something. Sometimes the holidays, Christmas especially, all of them, but Selena's birthday is December 20th. So it's like, it's just a difficult month. And for me, like they'll have Christmas parties, at work, and I don't want to go. I don't feel festive in that way, but I don't want to take away from anyone else. When I'm with Sarah and Jake and Adeline, then I start to feel the festive and I enjoy and I want to, celebrate. But I think people have to understand sometimes for whatever reason, a certain time of year might just be really difficult. And sometimes if we say no, we're not up to it, it's about us, not them. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Sometimes our body just doesn't have enough energy to go to whatever the event is.
And it could be something simple. I mean, you have to protect your grieving heart. That's what I've talked myself into now.
You really do. And now I feel like it's okay to say, I just can't. There's been days, especially in the winter, when from just especially around the holidays, I might not get dressed and I'm just kind of having a really lazy day and I don't want to do anything. I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to just be with my husband, do some binge watching and just have a lazy, useless day because that's all I have in me. Like my sister often says you can't pour from an empty cup.
She's so right.
It's so true. Yeah,
And sometimes you just need to
absolutely.
sit with your grief. Like you just need to sit
You
and
do.
cry and think about it all on your own. Not have anybody talk with you about it. Just be with your grief. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think for people to understand that I think is where people that haven't experienced this can help those that are going through it. Because unless you've gone through it, you cannot in any way imagine it. You just can't because it's a loss like no other.
Yeah, I find too that a lot of people sometimes just associate grief with being this overall, like, kind of negative experience sort of thing. But in reality, to me, it's the purest form of love. Like, when I feel sometimes my heart aching for Cassidy, it's because she's saying, like, hey, how come you haven't been loving me, recently? Like, that's why you're thinking of me, and that's why you're experiencing this, because you do love me and you need to show it.
That's a really nice way to put it. And I've actually seen some sayings that were similar in that grief is almost it's a reciprocal of the love. And we love our children so deeply and our siblings so deeply. Even when you bicker, you always love each other. And so the grief is that much more powerful. A social worker that I worked with had given me the saying, and I just love it. It hit me so much. I actually have it on a sideboard, and it said, she stood in the storm, and when the wind didn't blow her way, she adjusted her sails. Powerful, because that's what we do. All of a sudden, the path we think we're on, we're not, and we have to adjust our sails and keep
Mm.
moving forward.
It is funny when Mom asked you the question about ways you've changed. I wanted to chime in and ask about if you feel as though you've become more resilient, because I was thinking in my head about what I was going to ask. And one of the reasons why I wanted to ask that question is because I've noticed my mother's resilience really, really improve. Like, where before wind might have knocked her over, now she stands firm. Like, nothing can knock her off her path because the worst has already happened. And so it's really interesting that you say that, because that's really how I view my mom now. Like, she really has this resilience.
It's that determination to make sure your other child is living a happy life and that we're in it. That is where we keep moving. And so, yes, I was so determined to make sure that I was healthy and there for Sarah. Even now, I make sure I go to the gym. I make sure I keep my mind busy just because I want to be part of my grandchildren's lives and I want to be part of Sarah and Jake's life. So yes, but to me that was the most powerful factor for me. It's like I didn't want her to lose me as well as her sister, I guess is the best way to put it. So yes, I did come back from it stronger than I expected because of that.
Mary, you're even stronger than the last time I saw you. So it's
Well, I don't know about that.
you
I don't
are.
feel strong.
It's recognizable. So I know
Oh,
you and your
thank you.
family have found some really meaningful ways to remember and honor Celina. Tell us about those things.
We have a fund. It's Celina Marie Alexandra Memorial Scholarship Fund. If you go on the website, you can read about Celina and see the recipients. We have a scholarship on the West Coast that is at the Los Rios Foundation, and they uh, handle the endowment for the Folsom Lake Community College. And then we also have a scholarship on the East Coast where Celina went to high school, so for a high school graduate. And we have certain criteria. The endowment fund, they choose. The board, we have a board, gave criteria that we wanted them to look at to choose a recipient. And at the high school level, we have the criteria, and then we also ask them to write a minimal 500-word essay about where they think they'll be in 5 years and how they think they'll affect people. Sadly, people aren't going to know who Celina is, so let's give 2 scholarships this year to the high school, and the endowment's handled differently, but they're $1,500 scholarships that we
Wow,
give.
that's
Yeah, so
impressive.
they're nice scholarships. Yeah, so I'm very proud of that, and I feel like it honors her. It honors her name, and I think she would be thrilled to know that, we were doing this for her.
Awesome. I've learned a lot about myself and so much about grief through my own personal experience, and especially talking to other bereaved parents like you. What would you say you've learned most about yourself? And maybe what advice would you go back and give yourself 8 years ago when your grief journey first began?
Honestly, I think this is why God doesn't let us see the future, because if I had known, I don't think I would have ever let her go. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
As
absolutely.
far as how I would tell, I don't know. I'm not going to do a good job answering that because I don't know. One thing I'd say is don't sweat the little things because they really are little. I remember when Selena was 3, she had Kawasaki syndrome, and she ended up at Maine Med for 5 days, and so I stayed with her at Maine Med, and Albert and his mother Albert was second shift, so his mother would help us with Sarah, and, they'd come to visit, and I'd have lunch with Sarah while Albert was with Selena. But I remember before that, I was an at-home mom, so we, would be tight with bills, and I would worry about trying to make sure, payments got made and everything. And after that, I just remember it was like I planned us a trip to Bar Harbor. Said, you know what? We bought a tent. We can tent. It won't cost us that much. I remember thinking that's just nothing compared to the thought of at that time losing her. Um, so I think as we move forward, maybe I would tell myself just enjoy every day, every moment. Like, I'm really pleased with how we do enjoy Sarah and Jake and Adeline when we're together. I don't let this grief take over.
Hmm.
Um, so I guess that would be, I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like just don't worry about things you can't control.
And what would you say to a grieving parent that just found out they've lost their child, based on what you've learned?
Well, we've had actually, since this happened, I've had 4 people that I've known, not close friends, but that I've known have lost their child. And the first thing I always do is I always reach out to them and tell them if they want to talk, I'm here. Because I want them to know there's somebody that knows their pain, and that they have somebody if they want to just to talk to, that won't say, oh, I know how you feel, or I can imagine, because you can't. Even though I do, you still don't. We're all different. So for grieving parents, I think first, find a reason to get up in the morning, whatever that might be. Find a reason to keep moving forward. And if it helps, find a way to honor your child, if that is what will help you get up in the morning. I think everyone's so different that I have no doubt Selena and I know Cassidy would never have wanted us to be in bed all day and not functioning. I know they'd want us happy. They'd want us moving forward. They'd want us with our other children. And so I think if you can also think, would your child want you in misery, or would they want you living, you know? Because we don't have, I mean, we're here. We have to move forward, and however that looks for the grieving person, you have to find a way to do it. And reach out counseling also. That's a route, doesn't work for everyone, but if you find the right counselor, that can really, really help.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not always necessarily counseling. It really is about finding the right counselor for the right person in that moment.
Definitely.
Because
Yeah.
it's definitely, it's a shoe and one size doesn't fit all. So,
Good point. Really good point. That's very true. Yes.
yeah, it took me 3 or 4 people when I was first trying to find counselors. A couple of them I walked in and I just knew right away. I was like, this is not going to work. But when you find the right person and you can connect and you can have those conversations, you're right. Just being able to unload that and to receive
Yes.
advice that isn't anything aside from just wanting to care for you. You know, these people aren't doing it for any other reason other than to heal you in these moments. And so it can be all the difference really in this process.
That's such a good point. Absolutely.
All good advice. Well, we've reached the end of our podcast. I feel like I could talk to you forever about this because, we get each other, right, Mary?
We do get each other.
We get each other, but
we really do.
We want to give you the opportunity, as we do all of our guests, to just reflect and say how you would like the world to remember Celina.
Well, for me, I'd like the world to remember Celina as a loving, caring daughter, sister, friend, loyal, and someone that truly wanted to help people and help people be their best selves. And truly, by helping people, she felt like her best self. And there's one little part I just want to read quickly. That this was, I had put this at the eulogy because this struck me so much. With Celina. So I had written that I remember being in Pensacola at a piano bar with Celina, my husband, and Sarah, and it was Sarah's winging. So she's a pilot. So everybody, it was a crowd. And Celina and I were trying to make our way through the crowd when Celina instinctively took my hand to lead me through. I pray that she continues to take our hands and lead us through this overwhelmingly difficult time. And that was her. She just took my hand and was helping me, and that's just how she was. So I want people to remember she was as beautiful on the inside as she was on the outside.
I think she's still holding your hand.
Yeah, I think so too.
With every podcast interview, I just become so much more passionate about the realization that grief must be witnessed.
Yes.
And we feel so privileged to bear witness to your personal grief and are honored to say Celina's name with you.
Thank you. And I appreciate what you're doing for everyone, you and Colby, because I know this is not easy for you. But it is such a beautiful tribute to Cassidy also. You help a lot of people. You both do.
Thanks, Mary.
So I thank you too.
As long as you love.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found this podcast helpful, please share our link with others and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. I'm Monica Charette, reminding you that you are never alone in your grief. Until next time, we'll be right here with you, holding the light.
As long as you love.